Hello, I'm Dave and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the countryside. Thanks for joining us. Now today we're at the pretty village of Cranborne in Dorset. It's situated about 15 miles south of Salisbury and 10 miles north of Wimborne Minster. And we're going to be walking a roughly 5-mile circular route with a possible detour, starting in the village before heading northwest to Cranborne Farm, following the course of the River Crane, then north over downland and around the hamlet of Boveridge before heading back through some pretty woodland at Burwood and then returning to the village. And as I say, we might do a little detour to see if we can find the source of the River Crane. Now, you can probably see by the steam on my breath, I'm filming at the end of February. It's a bitterly cold day. It's about, well, I think it's still -1, -2. Hopefully going to warm up later on. But we're well wrapped up. The sun is out and there's blue sky. Should be perfect conditions for a walk, providing we keep moving. Come on with us. Well, we'll start off with a little exploration through the village. It's a very quiet village these days. But in days gone by, it was a very important town. It used to stand in what was once one of the largest parishes in Dorset, and the manor house here used to hold the court for the Cranborne chase. It started to decline in stature and become a village when the Blandford Forum to Salisbury Turnpike Road was established to the west, diverting traffic from here. The weekly market ceased in 1841, the town annual fairs ceased in 1868, and the grammar school closed in 1841. And whilst there were once 7 pubs in Cranborne, now there are just 2. But there's certainly a lot of history to the place, and particularly it's probably best known for its Abbey. A monastery was founded here in the 10th century by a knight called Aylward Snow or Snow. It was initially a college for about 6 monks. By about 980 AD, the Priory of Tewkesbury, of which Snow was a patron, was made entirely subordinate to the Church of Cranborne. After the Norman conquest in 1066, the lord of the manor here was imprisoned by William the Conqueror as he had been unfaithful to William's wife Matilda, and the estate was passed to Robert Fitz-Hamon. By 1102, Fitz-Hamon had become Lord of Tewkesbury, and as the monastery there was in ruins, he decided to rebuild it and effectively move everything from Cranborne to Tewkesbury. So 57 monks left here and the Abbey became a priory, but now dependent upon Tewkesbury Abbey, with just 1 prior and 2 monks remaining here. After the dissolution of monasteries, it was surrendered to the king in 1540. And the priory stood in the present vicarage garden and was eventually demolished in 1703. But the priory church survived to become the parish church. Let's have a look at that. And this is the church of St Mary and St Bartholemew, a Norman church. Well, most of it was rebuilt in the mid-13th century. None of the previous Saxon church, which was built when the Abbey was started, remains. The oldest part is the Norman doorway, which dates to about 1120. And back in 1252, it was dedicated to St Mary, St Peter and St Bartholomew. So I'm not sure when the St Peter bit left. The tower was built in 1440, and at 75 foot, it's one of the largest in any village in Dorset. The porch was rebuilt in 1873. The chancel was demolished and rebuilt in 1874 when the North Vestry was enlarged. And there were further restorations in 1854, 1877 and also 1910. So as you can see, it consists of a nave, chancel, north and south aisles, a north porch, vestry and a west tower. And I think it's got 8 bells. Wow. But it's one of those churches that looks It looks a lot bigger inside than outside, if you know what I mean. It is very dark. I might have to put some photos up. So just in front of me here is the font, which I believe is 1240, or dates to 1240. Some stunning stained glass windows in here, which is great, the effect with the sun coming through. Gosh, it really is quite long. Now up in front of me here, I'll put a photograph up that looks like paintings, must be the 12 disciples. And again, up on the wall, some somewhat faded, but still make out paintings there. Beautiful. Oh, I love this pulpit. 1440, I believe. Yeah, certainly there's parts of this that have really got a Victorian feel to it. The organ here was put in 1880, and then I think it was refurbished in the 1990s. But, beautiful wooden ceiling, and again another glorious stained glass window at the far end. Well, this is the Fleur-De-Lys pub, which dates to the 16th century, timber framed and encased in brick in the 18th century. The village actually appears in Thomas Hardy novels under the pseudonym Chaseborough, and in Tess of the d'Urbervilles, the heroine Tess danced in a barn near the Fleur-De-Lys Inn, which was modelled on the Fleur-De-Lys. I'll continue to make my way through the village. There's the second pub, the Sheaf of Arrows. And there's a delightful little village. And then just here on my left, what's called the Jubilee Gardens, established in the 1970s, presumably for the Queen's Silver Jubilee, I don't know. But as you can see, it's been fenced off because, look down there, a little, I don't know whether that's collapsed, but this is the culvert of the River Crane. Well, we were seeing a lot more of that river in the walk, but it used to actually come through the village, and then it was diverted through culverts many years ago. What a delightful little village. Right, we're going to start heading out into the countryside, initially heading westwards, following the course of the River Crane. In fact, Cranborne was recorded in the Domesday Book as Cranborne, a stream of cranes or herons. Well, just as we're heading out of Cranborne along this track, just to the south, hopefully you can see it through those trees. The trouble with filming this time of year, the sun is so low and it's tricky when you're filming looking to the south. But through there is Cranborne Manor House, and it's got a tremendous history. It's one of the oldest domestic buildings in England. In 1207 or 1208, King John visited the area for a hunt and established a fortified hunting lodge. He was a regular visitor here. Indeed, Cranborne Chase was a royal hunting ground from, well, 1066 right up to the 17th century. And the house here was enlarged and modified between 1608 and 1612 to become Cranborne Manor House. And then in around 1603, the manor and land was given by James I to Sir Robert Cecil, and he was made Viscount Cranborne in 1604 and Earl of Salisbury in 1605. Oh, I have seen sources that gives those dates all 1 year later. It's still the home today of Viscount Cranborne, the eldest son of the 7th Marquess of Salisbury. And the Cranborne estate still holds a fair bit of the village, some 125 properties, I think. And the houses are often identified with paintwork. The estate colour is a dark teal. Our first pit stop of the walk to admire the view. Really is a beautiful, crisp winter's morning. Great to be alive. And just looking down below there, there's the River Crane. We'll hopefully get a bit closer to it later on, but it's an unusual river. It changes its name mid-course. You've got the source, which hopefully we'll find today, to the northwest, and it flows down to join the River Stour, but its name becomes Moors River where it meets the Eblake stream just south of Verwood. We're just making our way past Manor Farm, and here we go, the home of the Book and Bucket Cheese Company. And there are the books with a bucket on top. Well, there you go. Well, there's another sight of the river, very much in full flow, with a duck certainly enjoying it there. I suspect there are times of the year when this could dry out further upstream, very much a winterborn, but with all the recent rain, no danger of that today. I think it's going to be a little bit chilly for a dog dip today, fella. He's having a think about it. Well, one paw. Yeah, no. Well, we've made our way to Cranborne Farm, and well, our route is basically, we've come along here, our route is to go up here, but I was going to do a little detour along here, but somewhat worryingly it says no bridge on path ahead. Well, we'll have a look, but a bit concerned about that. Oh dear. Doesn't look as though there's going to be a detour today. Real shame. Just panning around, you can see where the bridge used to be. I mean, I suppose we could try and go through it, but so my shoes aren't waterproof and would have to come back this way as well. So my original plan for this detour was to cross over the river, head up the valley, and to proudly point out on the ground the source of the River Crane to you, where it first comes out above ground, but there you go. The other shame about it is that our path would have gone over something called the Dorset cursus, which is this Neolithic earthworks built in, well, 3300 BC. It's 6.5 miles long, and it's a pair of parallel banks. They're about 1.5 meters high, 82 meters wide. The historians aren't sure what it was built for, possibly some sort of ceremonial process, I don't know. Whatever it wasn't there for very long. Only little sections of it can be seen today, and I even think just up here it's all been ploughed over, so there's nothing to see, but you do actually pass through it. Anyway, we're not going to see it, so we're going to now rejoin our proper route and start heading northwards. Well, I've now joined the Jubilee Trail, that 90-mile long-distance path that winds its way from Ford Abbey in Somerset all the way through to the Bockley Dyke on the Hampshire-Dorset border. It was established in 1995 to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Ramblers Association. Another little pit stop to take in some of these views. So here's your typical Dorset rolling landscape here, and then just on the other side of the track, some of these crops showing some green shoots. Spring not that far away, and with the sun out, it's now just beginning to get a nice temperature as well. We'll now come to a little crossroads. The Jubilee Trail heads north. We're going to sort of carry on heading eastwards to Boveridge, and there's a track here that comes up from, I think, from Cranborne, and it's part of the Hardy Way, which is that 220-mile long-distance path that snakes its way through Dorset, linking places that have got connections with Thomas Hardy. I think it starts at Higher Bockhampton, where he was born, and then finishes at Stinsford Churchyard, where he was buried. But just here behind me is, I think it's called Jack's Hedge Corner, and if you look on a 1901 map, it says that there was once a British settlement here, probably Romano-British, covered about 10 acres or so. They found a lot of pottery here, but there's no evidence of the actual buildings all being levelled under plough many centuries ago. It's a beautiful spot though. Just before we pass through the tiny little hamlet of Boveridge, I thought we'd look back westwards. One last look at this beautiful countryside. So days like today, you can just stand for 3 or 4 minutes in silence and just take it all in. We'll just pass through Boveridge and heading southwards, very much on our homeward leg now. It's not a very big place. The main building is Boveridge House, which is what's over to my left behind trees, hidden. We're not going to be able to see it. It was built in 1788, and I think it's a special needs college now. Not 100% sure. Well, there are a couple of really interesting buildings to look at in Boveridge. First one is here in front of me, St Aldham's Chapel, and it was a chapel of ease to Cranborne. Indeed, there was a chapel mentioned in 1595, but the present building dates to 1838. It was restored in 1896, and it then became redundant in 1980 and was eventually converted to a residential house in 1982. I love the top to it. It is quite pretty. And just along from the chapel are these lovely almshouses, thatched, and they were provided by a chap called Thomas Hooper in the 16th century. He was then owner of the Boveridge estate. Well, very much on our last section of the walk now, coming through a very alluring bit of woodland called Burwood, and that should take us back to Cranborne. Well, just before we drop back down into the village and say goodbye to these fantastic views, I should point out that just to the south of the village, if you look on an old map, you'll see some earthworks on top of Castle Hill. There's not too much known about it. It covers 2.5 acres with a circular motte of about 180 foot in diameter and 28 foot high, and it's surrounded by a small ditch and an outer bank. And there was probably a small Norman Motte and Bailey castle there. Certainly it was a very good strategic position. But when King John established his hunting lodge in the village in the 13th century, that became the manor house and the centre of the village, and so the castle was no longer required. Right, let's see if the pub's still open. Well folks, we've made it back to the Sheaf and Arrows pub in Cranborne. We hope you enjoyed our walk today. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment, and do check out our Facebook page, Dave's Countryside Walks. So until we meet again, thanks for watching, and cheerio. Oh, I'm looking forward to this. Oh, lovely. Oh yes, I hadn't forgotten the most important part of the walk.